Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So Liverpool lost their first game of the pre-season tour of the US last night. And first things first, I'm sorry that this video is so late, but I was out of town when the game happened. I actually ended up watching the game on my phone live while on the motorway, which isn't the most ideal way to watch a football match. So also forgive me if my analysis isn't as in-depth and as insightful as I usually try to make it. It is quite difficult to, follow the finer points of a football match when it's on such a tiny screen and you're going at 70 miles an hour. But I will try my best to cover all the most interesting points from the game. And starting off, it's the thing that's got everyone talking. It's the only thing anyone could speak about after the match. It is the Loris Karius situation. And I mean, the lad just looks absolutely shot to bits, to be fair to him. We've known this already, essentially, in pre-season. He's made a lot of shaky errors, and even when he does things well, there was a moment in that game where Borussia Dortmund tried to play a ball across goal, and he sort of dives down and catches it. And normally, if a goalkeeper does that, you think, yeah, that's good goalkeeping. He's come out, he's taken his command of his area, and he's got down well to take it. But the way that Karius just goes about things, the way he acts on the football pitch, even when, like I said, he's doing the right things, just instantly puts you in a difficult position as a fan because it makes you nervous. And it's the exact opposite with what we've been told with Alisson coming in, where Alisson does the kind of things that normally you have your heart in your mouth when a Liverpool goalkeeper does them, but he just makes you feel assured because he's so calm when he does it, lobbing balls over defenders and taking them on with Rabona passes and anything ridiculous like that. He makes that look easy and simple and calming. And the flip side of it is Loris Karius, and to be honest, most Liverpool goalkeepers at the moment make the most simple things look absolutely terrifying, and he did that in yesterday's game. And then you've also got the errors that he made as well. I mean, you got the one that happens 4 minutes in, even before the one that everyone's been talking about, the one that's probably actually a worse error, but fortunately didn't lead to a Borussia Dortmund goal, when he flies out of his area to get a through ball and to stop a Dortmund player getting onto it, which at the end of the day is a good decision. It's good, it's confident, it's what you want from your sweeper keeper when you're playing a high defensive line. But then he completely cocks up the clearance to the point where he puts the chance on a plate for a Borussia Dortmund player. And it's just like, he is just shot to bits at the moment. I've said it already in this video. I've said it multiple times. It's clear that he is not in the right mental state, and that was proved with something which should have been a simple save at the end of the game, but he simply allowed straight to a Dortmund player. He should be catching that all day long. Any goalkeeper of any standard should be either getting two hands to that or putting it out of the danger zone, and he just palmed it straight to a Dortmund player for their third goal when he really, really didn't need to. So he's just a complete mess at the moment, and if I'm perfectly honest, his future just has to lie away from Liverpool now, because it's never going to work from at the club. We've already seen how things are going to go down when he comes up against, English fan bases. They are all going to go, they're all going to be silly about it. They're all going to try and put pressure on him. It's a little bit better in the US. I feel like everyone's got a much more sort of happy slapping attitude and they're trying to help him through it. But at the end of the day, it's just not going to work, and he needs some time away from English football and away from Liverpool to get his head out of the current space that it's in and get himself back to his usual form from what we knew was a very, very promising goalkeeper. So yeah, I really can't see a future for Loris Karius at Liverpool anymore. I think in the short term, we got 2 more games of the US tour before Alisson comes in for that French training camp and will play presumably in the last 2 pre-season friendlies before that game against West Ham. Until then, I just think, give minutes to the lads, the kids, give it to Grabara, give it to Kelleher. They're young goalkeepers. They could do with this fantastic experience of playing up against top quality teams in front of huge crowds as well on a US tour when a huge amount of eyes are on them. That would be great experience for them, and I think that's just so much better than carrying on playing Loris Karius, because Jurgen Klopp has said before that his priority is always a player's well-being. He always wants to do what's best for their careers. He doesn't want to ruin their careers just for the good of Liverpool Football Club and for the good of Jurgen Klopp. So if Loris Karius is just, if he's being affected negatively just by playing for Liverpool, then take him out the firing line completely and give opportunities to those young lads, because I think at the moment we're all much more interested to see what Grabara and Kelleher can offer than what Loris Karius can offer, because we all know it's a foregone conclusion now what we're going to get when Loris Karius is out on the pitch. And then the big problem that now faces Liverpool, beyond just who we play for the rest of the US pre-season tour, is who we're actually going to have as backup, because Loris Karius has now come out and made comments about, his future and how he's considering maybe a move away from Liverpool. He's considering what to do with the summer transfer window closing in about 3 weeks or something like that. I can't really see him staying at Liverpool. I really think it's a bad idea to keep him at Liverpool. We know that Mignolet wants to move away as well because he is not going to be content to be back up, no matter whether that is to Karius or to the most expensive goalkeeper in the world. He does not want to be on the bench. He wants to be playing first team football. So that's Mignolet probably gone as well. We're losing Ward as well. He's already gone. So it puts Liverpool in a difficult position now where we don't really have an established goalkeeper who can play backup. You know, as much as I'd like to see Grabara and I'd like to see Kelleher, neither of them are really at the stage in their careers when, you know, if Alisson gets injured in like a Champions League game or anything like that, do we really want to be bringing on Grabara for those? I don't think we do, and I don't think it's really conducive to a young player like that's development, especially in such a high pressure role as goalkeeper, to be bringing them on that early in their career. So it's something that Liverpool, I think, will have to consider now with the transfer window closing in 3 weeks. I know we said we're not really interested in doing any more business, but I think that might be something that the Jurgen Klopp and his team are going to have to review, because at the moment, Karius not going to be backup keeper because I can't see him staying at Liverpool. Mignolet doesn't want to be backup keeper. Ward is gone. Alisson's obviously going to be the number one. And then the kids are just too young and inexperienced at the moment. So next up, another negative that came out of that game. It's a bit of a shame because, you know, pre-season tours are meant to be nice. They're meant to just be about having fun and watching the team. But unfortunately, this game didn't really go to plan. And sometimes it's nice to moan, isn't it? It's nice to sort of address the problems that do still exist, no matter how well things are going. And unfortunately for Liverpool yesterday, Joel Matip did hobble off about 20 minutes into the game, which puts us in a very, very difficult situation with those first few games of the season coming up, where Dejan Lovren is probably not going to be available to partner Virgil van Dijk. And, you know, it's yet more proof that, you know, the thing that we've all worried about is the potential injury risk for Joel Matip and for Dejan Lovren as well. It's why people have still called out for centre-back replacements or centre-back backups to be brought into place, because as good as Virgil van Dijk is, and as good as Dejan Lovren has been, and Joel Matip is a reasonably sound backup, you just can't rely on those two lads to play next to Virgil van Dijk on a regular basis. The proof was there yesterday when Joel Matip hobbled off, and now Liverpool are faced with a difficult situation. And I think when you look at the options we've got available, Ranier Klavan and Joe Gomez both played yesterday, and to be honest, both of them had some very shaky moments. I think Ranier Klavan was the player who was at fault for the Pulisic penalty. Joe Gomez then defends the last goal very, very badly. He just basically allows a Dortmund player to get in front of him and then allows him to stay in front of him as well, which is the strangest thing about it. He doesn't try and get in front of him to stop the ball. He just allows the Dortmund player to get there first and score the third, which is really, really disappointing, and something that's happened with Joe Gomez in the past as well. You know, while he has looked a classy footballer in flashes, he's shown himself to still be error prone, similar to Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. He's got to make those errors as a young player so he can actually evolve as a player and get better and hone his craft, essentially. But I just think, you know, in that centre-back role, do you really want someone who's going to be liable to make those errors? It's all right when they're a right-back, but centre-back is a different kettle of fish. They've got to be reliable on a regular basis, and there are still question marks over whether or not Joe Gomez can deliver that for Liverpool. Like I said, Klavan looked okay, but also had some shaky moments as well. And I think, you know, if West Ham's attack is as good as it's meant to be with all the new transfers they're coming in, I'd worry that if they try to isolate Ranier Klavan as well, if they've got fast players who are good on the ball, good dribblers and stuff like that, and they play some nice quick 1-2 touch passing and things like that, and they try to isolate Ranier Klavan, we could be in a spot of bother on that first day of the season. So it's a big question over Jurgen Klopp's head now, and I think he does have to have a word in the ear of those centre-backs and say, look, I'm really having to place my faith in you here, so I'm relying on you to step up, because for the good of the team, you need to start raising your game and actually sorting your performances out and cutting those errors out of your game, because otherwise Liverpool are going to find themselves in trouble. I think he needs to have some sort of chat with the centre-back options he's got at the moment to make them realise the pressure that they are going to be under now, because otherwise, to be honest, I'd actually be interested in giving Nat Phillips a go. I mean, obviously, he's still young. He hasn't had any competitive experience in the first team. But so far, he hasn't really put a foot wrong in all pre-season. There are still issues around things like his distribution. He is a reasonably strong and tall lad, so there aren't really problems about him adapting to the physicality of the Premier League and stuff like that. Like I said, on the ball, he leaves a little bit to be desired. But he does the basics very, very well. Like I said, he's strong, so he can muscle players off. He commands his space on the pitch reasonably well. And next to Virgil van Dijk, he gets the best brought out of him anyway. So I think that is something that Jurgen Klopp needs to be seriously considering going into those first few games of the season, and looking at Nat Phillips not just as a prospect for the future and a youngster who's performing and shining very brightly during pre-season, but as someone that he actually needs to think about integrating into his plans. Because to be honest, I would actually quite like to see Nat Phillips on opening day against West Ham, simply because, you know, it's exciting and it's new and you don't know what's going to happen. But apart from that, he has been very good so far in pre-season as well. So next up, there were a few problems as well in yesterday's game surrounding our front line, because Solanke and Origi both had very, very poor games, and I think highlighted the lack of options Liverpool have available in their front three when the main lads aren't available. And obviously, you know, people will caveat it with Mane's still got to come back, Salah's still got to come back, Firmino and Shaqiri have still got to come back as well. So all the big boys are presumably going to return to be able to play in those first few games of the season. But when you think about the cup games, or when you think about potential injuries that could occur to those frontline players, and you look at the backup that we have got available, I personally would be quite worried. You know, I have sang Solanke's praises in the past, and I think he was marginally better than Origi yesterday, just because he had a few good moments where, like I've said in the past, he does kind of shine out in terms of how he brings his other teammates into play. He played an absolutely fantastic ball for Alberto Moreno. I think it was in that first half or that second half. I can't remember which half he played, but it was a great ball to Moreno that really was deserving of an assist. You know, Moreno should have put it away. It was an amazing outside of the boot ball that just put Moreno through on goal, bearing down on the goalkeeper about 18 yards out or something like that. So in flashes, he's still shown himself to be good, but when it comes to the bread and butter, when it comes to just putting the ball in the back of the net, so far this pre-season he's been as bad as Origi has been, which is weird, to be honest, because last pre-season he was so good at finding the net. You know, he was really good in the air as well, considering yesterday he has a moment where he gets his head on the ball and he just heads it across goal with zero threat whatsoever and completely misses the target and messes it up. When you compare that to what we saw from Solanke last pre-season, where he was banging them in with his head, he looked a real threat in the air for Liverpool, and people were talking about him as a potential effective plan B when things aren't going our way and when we consider maybe humping the ball into the box a few more times. It's really odd because we know that the ability's there and there's just something that's stopping it from coming out at the moment. And I wonder whether maybe it is this pressure now that Origi's back as well, and now that Sturridge has had a bit of a resurgence, now that Firmino's been so brilliant, he's maybe worried that his chances in the first team are going to be even more limited next season, so he needs to try a little bit harder, and maybe that's causing him to play within himself a little bit. But either way, he's been poor so far this pre-season, and that is an inescapable fact, and something which does make me a little bit sad, because like I said, we all know there's a player in there, and then Origi as well, just naff. His usual self, you know, can't hit a barn door when he's shooting, and he's so footballingly unintelligent that it's really quite baffling, because we haven't seen this in the past from Divock Origi. You know, he has been impressive in the past. He's fitted well into Jurgen Klopp's system, even to the point where Klopp preferred him over Sturridge because he saw him as a more useful player to play in that front and central role and the way that Jurgen Klopp wanted him to play. And he just really fell off to the point when he was getting caught out in silly offsides yesterday, where you're just looking at it and thinking, why are you doing that? Why are you in those positions when you know you're offside and you don't need to be there and you're not creating any sort of threat or anything like that? So Origi has massively fallen off a cliff over the last couple of years. I can't see a future for him at Liverpool. I think Solanke, it's going to be at least another year before he can be considered a serious first-team prospect that Liverpool can call upon. And then Daniel Sturridge, while he has been impressive in this pre-season, I hate to bring up the old cliche that you can't necessarily rely on it or rely on him, especially because he's actually looked much fitter and much stronger this pre-season than he usually does. He looks like he's really put in the work behind the scenes to try and get himself up to speed and ready to actually fit into a Jurgen Klopp system. But I just think, especially with him aging as well and with his injury history in the past, you know, his muscles aren't going to be what they used to be. You don't want to be relying on him too often. And if we're going to be trying to use him in this deeper role as well as a backup striker, then you're asking him to do maybe a few too many things if you want him to do that regularly for Liverpool as well. So as for what we do in the transfer market, I think something has to be done, because there was something lacking in terms of the creative ability yesterday as well. I know Adam Lallana's been pretty good. Keita was fantastic as well, but I do think we need a more out-and-out, simple number 10 player, and preferably someone who can also fill in as a striker. I mean, Fekir is essentially that player. It's why Liverpool want him so much, because he is the perfect player for our system. Whether or not we resurrect that remains to be seen, because, I mean, we talk about Daniel Sturridge's injury problems. Fekir Keita has got recent history with injuries as well, so he's no golden angel in that regard either. I mean, there are other footballers out there, only a few of them, but there are others who maybe fit that role. I'm thinking maybe Paulo Dybala or something like that. But when you think about those players and their availability, Liverpool can have a serious job on their hands trying to convince the clubs that own them to sell them and trying to convince the players to come to Liverpool as well, especially when you think about the fact that there's only 3 weeks to go between now and the end of the window, and we've already invested so much time into trying to get deals over the line like the one with Nabil Fekir. So again, problems there. Hopefully something that we might actually have to dip into the transfer market to sort out again. But, if anyone can do it, I have faith that Jurgen Klopp, he's not an idiot. Some people try and market him as this happy-go-lucky guy that just kind of ignores the mistakes and always gives players second chances and always expects maybe a little bit better of his players than they're actually able to give him. But I do think at the end of the day, he can be ruthless behind the scenes. We saw it when he brought in Alisson this summer. He's not a fool, and he can see when problems need fixing, and he will be proactive in trying to fix that. So hopefully he's looked at that Dortmund game as well, seen what's missing from the team, seen that we need a creative player and a backup forward as well, and hopefully the wheels are already in motion to try and sort that out behind the scenes. So yeah, I hate to be all negative, and of course there were a few positives that came out of that game as well. I mean, Keita is still the business. He seems to actually get better the better the opposition he plays. His best performance so far has probably been the one against Blackburn, but it felt like he'd started stepping it up a notch again in the game yesterday against even more higher standard of opposition in Borussia Dortmund. I mean, he struggled in terms of the service. He probably deserved an assist from the way he played. It was really exciting to see him get in the box as well. The way he took players on. He actually showed a lot of skill, almost on par with maybe what you'd expect from a winger, trying to cut inside, get into the box and supply the strikers. So it was great to see that side of his game as well. I mean, he really does feel like the complete package. He can charge from distance, he can cut inside, he can take players on, he can play passes, he can tackle, he can intercept. He just looks absolutely brilliant, and he again is that kind of player who puts a smile on your face, and I just hope to see more fantastic things from him between now and the end of the season, and I just can't wait to see him actually deploying all these wonderful skills in the skill set of his in competitive Premier League games. And then Curtis Jones was again boss to the point that I actually want to see the player in the first team. We've done this in the past with youngsters. We've said about maybe players like Ben Woodburn, just why not play him in the first team? What could possibly go wrong? And we've seen that maybe it can stunt a player's development, and people might argue, because there are essentially, I think, two schools of thought on what you do with a player after they have a good pre-season. You either say that was really good, now hone your craft in the under-23s a bit, and we'll maybe think about including you in the first team later on in the season if you continue to improve, or you can say that was a fantastic pre-season, get in the first team now. I think people obviously worry that maybe again you are stunting their development by throwing them into the first team, but I think if they can't handle that jump, then you do kind of worry that maybe later on in their career, what is their mentality going to be like in big games like cup finals and huge European nights and stuff like that? They've got to be able to deal with big occasions where the pressure's on. So start them off early, start them where the pressure's on in a game where it maybe doesn't matter. And if they have a poor game, they can just go back to the under-23s, rather than if they have a poor game, it's on the back of every newspaper up and down the country. So yeah, I'd quite like to see him thrown in. And like I said, we need a creative player. We need someone in our midfield who's going to link up with the attack. And I know I've criticised Curtis Jones' final ball in the past, and I still feel like his play when it comes to end product is still the only thing missing. But we have seen it in flashes. We've seen he's capable of it. And if there's one thing we can take away from his performances, it's that he doesn't get phased playing at the right tempo for a first team competitive side. So I don't think he would actually, slow down the team if he played in the first team in those Premier League games. So more of Curtis Jones, please. The guy is absolutely brilliant. And then Fabinho, again, steady, takes up really good defensive positions as well, to the point where it doesn't even look like he's doing that much, because he's just so intelligent that he's always in the right place at the right time to slow things down or cut out a pass, or almost just stop a pass from being made altogether, because he just boxes off a position so well that players get their head up and think there's no point passing into the centre because Fabinho's there anyway, to the point where he stops attacks without even really having to try. And that is fantastic to see, because it takes so much pressure off of the players around him as well, and will improve our game management, because if we don't feel like we're under pressure, we'll be able to cruise through games a lot easier and hopefully pick up a few more easy wins thanks to his defensive abilities. So that is great. I was was really excited once again to see Andrew Robertson be brilliant with his deliveries down the left-hand side. I'm hoping that the Robertson to Van Dijk combo becomes a more regular thing because it's really great. We all love Andrew Robertson crosses and we all love Van Dijk headers as well because the guy is absolutely brilliant. And then finally, Daniel Sturridge did do some nice stuff in the press recently when he was talking about how he sees his future at the club and how he sees his situation right now. It was good to see that he seems happy, and it almost seems like he feels better right now than he ever has at Liverpool. And considering, you know, the good times he's had at the club in the past when he's been more of a first team player and where he's been more involved and probably more adored by the fans as well, when you compare to how he's seen now more of a liability than anything. So it was really nice to hear that from Daniel Sturridge, and gives you hope that he will have some really positive part to play in the first team this season, because what we've seen so far in pre-season has been very good. So that is all for today's video. Ultimately, a very disappointing defeat for Liverpool. It is always a shame to lose games, but hopefully this has given Jurgen Klopp something to think about. Like I said, there's plenty of stuff to sort out. You've got the goalkeeper situation, you've got the centre-back situation, you've got the forwards and the creative midfielder situation as well. But like I said, if you trust anyone to sort this out, then you trust Jurgen Klopp, because the guy is a fantastic football manager at the end of the day. So yeah, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm sorry it was so late, but there was no way around it at the end of the day. If you have still enjoyed this video, then hit that like button down there, hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back soon with either transfer news or content around the friendly against Manchester City. Bye for now.